Hello. Welcome. Thank you for attending this very special event. I will be narrating my playthrough of completing Hollow Knight on Steel Soul mode in under an hour and a half. Hopefully showing you a few tips and tricks you may not have known about previously. If you would prefer a non-narrated version of this, I'll leave a link in the description so you can just go click on that and shut me up. But if you're here to learn something, that's cool too. So, the easiest way for me to describe how I actually did this is to break it down to a list of simple goals of things that I wanted to achieve. So the first goal here is make it to Dirtmouth. And, you know, some pogoing is a bonus. So after making it to Dirtmouth, there are some required things that you have to do in order to complete the game. We're going to be doing a few extra optional things from a usual speedrun, just for safety's sake, because we're in Steel Soul mode, so we can't do some of the traditional skips you'd see in an average speedrun, like the shade skip. So our next goal here is to defeat the False Knight as fast as possible. This room is my favorite trick of the entire run. Pogo on this guy, and then bam! I love that. So it's not a requirement to defeat the False Knight. It is a requirement to get the Vengeful Spirit spell. So whether or not we defeat the False Knight is really up to us, but either way we still have to trigger that boss fight by being present in the room. So I'm gonna take a few non-traditional things here, like what I'm doing here, even though I just made a pretty big mistake there. And again, at this point I was actually considering restarting the run because of those two very simple mistakes, but I decided to press on. So, and I'm stopping to collect the grubs for a specific reason that will become obvious later in the run. And here is our first boss fight. So you notice that I've taken damage, but I haven't healed yet, because this right here is the most optimal time to stop and heal, when you have to be waiting on the boss anyways. So you're not losing any time by stopping in your tracks and healing. You're stopping when you have to be waiting anyways. There is a trick here where if you stop fighting him, he will go ahead and just destroy the floor. But I don't like to do that. I like to fight him. I just enjoy it more, so I do that. Even if it would save time to stop fighting him, I don't care. So I should mention that I'm playing on a not very normal controller. I'm using the 8-bit Do arcade stick that I have modded to high heaven. So there are some weird quirks about the controller. Specifically, sometimes my up and down presses don't register. So there are a few spots in the run where I'll try and point out where my up press just didn't register, even though I had pressed it. So this is a requirement. So we've grabbed that. So right here, I swing up to hit the boards above me so that I have one less to hit on the way back down. And I'm already stocked on soul, so I'm really just trying to hang on to it. That was a really dumb mistake, and I'm mad at myself in my head while playing this. And here's another terrible mistake, because you can swing up and hit that guy into the spikes without getting hit, and that's one of my favorite tricks. So I'm mad at myself right now for messing that up and wanting to start over, but not wanting to waste the time. And I'm glad I didn't start over, because this was the run that ultimately has been my best. So this is a very important charm. We're going to use it for most of the run, but not the whole thing. And you'll see why, because I do another non-traditional thing with this run. So about this run, most of it was inspired from Fireborn and watching his playthrough, but I've added a lot of my own things, because I believe he's either the world record holder or close to it in Steel Soul mode, because his run is insane. Oh, here, by the way, I'm trying to completely stock up on souls, so by the time I get to this guy over here, I'll be able to just smash him immediately. So yeah, there's quite a few things that I do to make the run safer, which every additional thing you do obviously adds time. But I'm really just trying to get a great time and not a perfect time. I could really care less about being completely perfect. My goal was really just under 2 hours I'd be happy with. And this is my my signature happy hop. I call it the happy hop. It's a requirement. So right there I was trying to do the fireball skip, where if you cast 2 fireballs, it is possible to make that ledge, although I've never once done it successfully. That mosquito hop is way more consistent for me to pogo off the mosquito and make this skip, because going this way saves a ton of time in your overall route. And one of my goals from now until basically when I get to Hornet is I want to have about 700 Geo, more specifically 686, because in my run I stopped to get the Fragile Strength Charm, which costs 600 plus Leg Eater charges 86 just to see that he has it. So being stocked on soul there is very important, so you can hit him once, fireball, blast him 3 times. And then the goal here is to get fully restocked on soul before the next fight. So that's the only reason I'm killing these guys, is to restock my soul. Up hit him once, and then blast him 3 times. I missed the last fireball by just a pixel. So just missing that one fireball makes this fight longer than it needs to be. But still fairly quick. So getting some extra soul there from that guy, because this used to be the run killer, because I added this to help me get to the 686 geo. But these guys can be pretty difficult to fight, especially if they're together like how they were just about to be. So that's the most dangerous part of the run for a while. But the geo you collect from that is worth it. Because now I only need about 60 geo. And Hornet doesn't give you any. Some bosses do. So my goal here is basically hit her as much as possible, and whenever I have soul, blast her. Obviously dodge her hits. And that's Hornet. So now we've collected the Mothwing Cloak, which is the second required item for the run. You cannot beat the game without Mothwing Cloak. And our next goal is the Mantis Claw. So this is the first example of a save and quit bench skip. I'm just going to call them bench skips from now on. So this bench skip takes us back to the last place that we sat at a bench. So it's important that that's the only bench that we use up until this point, because this is where we want to be to get to our next objective, the Mantis Claw. But first, I'm going to take a little detour here and collect some geo, because we still need about 60. And these don't give you much, but the combination of the 4 total saved me from having to go find and kill a ton of enemies. So I'm plus these 3 here. This gives us what we need, so we don't have to stop and kill anything in the Fungal Hollow. We can just go straight to what we want. So the Strength Charm, Fragile Strength, is not really important at this point in the run. By the way, that was a weird little skip, because I was supposed to be stun locked from that fall. But for some reason, I hit it in just the right way that it didn't stun lock me. So yeah, Fragile Strength isn't important to us now, but we're never coming back here in the run. So that's why I made it a priority to get enough geo in order to buy it. So that this one time that we pass through here, we can pick it up and use it later in the run. Like, it's already equipped, but it's not going to become effective until we've upgraded our nail. But once we've upgraded our nail, holy hell is Fragile Strength. extremely useful. It's worth all 3 charm notches that it requires. So there we picked up an optional charm notch, and that's because later in the run I want to use Soul Catcher in combination with Fragile Strength. So you start with 3 charm notches. So now we currently have 4. So we only need 1 more, because Fragile Strength is 3 notches, Soul Catcher's 2. So here we're just trying to get to Mantis Claw as quickly as possible. That was a big mistake. I'm really mad at myself, and then I do it again right there. But it's fine. We're gonna press on. So this map is very tricky to learn how to do even remotely well, to go quickly. And I still mess it up occasionally. I have some really good runs of it, and I have some really terrible ones. Unfortunately, this is one of the worst. But I have this trend of when I make a really bad mistake, I tend to make up for it pretty shortly after. So, and that happens multiple times in this run. So there's another trick here where that flying mantis, you can pogo off his head and make it up to that ledge in the right, but he wasn't in a good position to do it, so I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna just take the long way, rather than waste a bunch of time and ultimately not be able to do it anyways. So I like to kill these guys. I see a lot of speedrunners just blaze past them, but it takes like a fraction of a second to stop and kill them, and it just makes the path back so much less stressful for me, so I just take the time to kill them. This is a part of the run that I actually introduced from watching Fireborn, because previously I would do a bench skip and go back to Dirtmouth, but Fireborn showed me this trick, and I've used it in a way that I don't think he probably really intended. I'm not sure. Maybe. I mean, really, it's hard to explain until you see why I'm going this way. Little safety bounce there, just to make it a little easier. So this room, I'm grabbing the grubs for a specific reason, and then I'm also doing the same with the charms, where I don't need this charm for the run. This is very optional, and if I were gonna trim out all the things I didn't need to do, that would be definitely one thing that would go. But I'm getting that so I can get an easy charm notch later in the run, because it requires you collecting 5 charms and then visit Salubra, and she charges 120 geo for our 5th charm notch. So here we have to navigate Deep Nest without the Lunafly lantern, which in these areas we can still see. We're not going to be going to any rooms that are pitch black. And it may seem scary to be here this early in the game, because this is generally one of the last areas that you're going to visit. But these areas that I'm going to be going through really aren't very difficult. I'm surprised if I even usually get hit once or twice. So there I'm just equipping Spore Shroom so I get a little extra damage from healing Totally not necessary. So here is another completely optional thing that I recently incorporated into my run just to allow me to be able to buy something that I want later in the run. But this room kind of sucks, and I've only done it a couple times in the speedrun. So I don't really have an amazing strat for it other than just fight. And don't die. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you how many of them there are. That's how new this area is to this run. But the reward is worth it. And that is the King's Idol. So now we can finish up in Deep Nest and get the hell out of here. This is a very poor spot to stop and heal. That thing almost got me. And even though the rest of this part is very easy, I would rather not be on 1 health, where just any single random hit could wipe out the run. So I'd rather take a little safety heal to get off of 1 health. So gotta hit the switch to open the door. And here's the entire point of navigating through Deep Nest this early in the game. Is to grab the tram pass. And we're gonna do another bench warp here. Back to the beginning of Deep Nest, so we don't have to traverse all the way back through it. And then this will be the only time that we use the tram pass in the entire run. Immediately after we get it, and then never use it again. We just don't need it. But for this one use, it's very important, because this gets us a few things really early. Which you're about to see. So I'll let it happen rather than spoil what it is. So these guys were a bit intimidating when I first put this in the run, because this is also one of the newest additions to the run, courtesy of Magi Pagi, showing me, not really showing me, I already knew this existed, but her doing her run while I was incorporating the tram pass and Deep Nest into my run, and then her finding this in her natural playthrough sparked something in my head. I was like, you know, if I could go grab that pale ore, it would be easier than what I've been doing, which previously I've been getting the Crystal Peak pale ore, which is 20 times harder than getting this one. Not only is it way out of the way, it's way farther in the run, and there's a lot more opportunities to end your run doing that, because it's It's much harder, and there are a few skips involved, because normally they'd expect you to have Mothwing Cloak to get the Crystal Pete's Payloader, because of the required double jumps. But you can pogo off some enemies to do it. So this is a scary trick, but once you kind of get the rhythm of how to do the dash pogo, it's not that bad. I make a pretty big mistake here and fall all the way back to the bottom. But we press on. There's definitely a few mistakes in the run. So like I said earlier about how when I usually make a big mistake, I usually make up for it. Here's where I make up for it. I juke these guys and do this part without getting hit. So, here's another pretty big mistake. I fall down here. And then it's like, I hate these platforms because they don't wall jump like normal, so I just take the long way. It's like, whatever. Trying to save time sometimes ultimately will end up costing you time. Here we have the worshipping of the glorious husk with violence, who grants you 420 geo. I don't know where that extra 6 went, but we gotta stop and get the 420. That's a requirement. So here we're gonna stop and open up the stag and grab this hollowness seal. And I can't for the life of me understand why this wall jump isn't working for me. I know that I'm doing it kind of incorrectly, but it's always worked this way for me before. So here we're gonna grab the bench because we're gonna bench warp back here later. Plus that gives us a full heal for free, aside from a very little time loss from having to sit on the bench. This guy always hits me, and I don't know why. So those were 2 mistakes. I'm about to make up for it with this here. This is my best run of this room ever. Wander's Journal. That's 200 geo for later. And so here our goal is to make it to the resting grounds to unlock the Dreamers, which is a requirement. So we're about a third of the way through the run now. And this honestly is my least favorite part of the run because of how much waiting you have to do. Not just here, but then once you get in there and then you have to jump all the platforms, and it's like, I understand if you want to skip ahead a few minutes. I don't really even have much to say about this part, aside from bored. So bored. Oh my god, I'm so bored. A lot of speedrunners will dash all the way across this. I'm not comfortable enough doing that, because if you fall, it sends you back. I don't think it makes you do the entire area again, but I would just rather not have to deal with falling. I don't care about going fast that much. I'm not trying to break any world records here. Now we have the Dream Nail, and now we have the Dreamers unlocked. So this is going to warp us up to the Seer in the top right of the Resting Grounds. So I'm going to do two things before I do my next bench warp. First, I'm going to open the Stag Station, not resting at the bench because we don't want to bench warp there. We want to bench warp back to the City of Tears. But I'm also going to go over here and grab the Dream Shield charm, which we're never going to use in the run, but we need it in order to get the charm notch from Salubra, which we're going to do very soon. So back to King's Station. This is my favorite part of the run, primarily because we get to upgrade our nail. And that makes the run so much more enjoyable for me, just doing that extra bit of damage. It's huge. So I'm gonna kill these guys for some soul and some geo. Because they grant a good bit of geo. Very brief cutscene here. I'll just skip past it. So the first nail upgrade costs 250 geo. The second nail upgrade costs 1 pale ore and 800 geo. So in total, we need 1,050 geo and 1 pale ore to get 2 nail upgrades. So I currently don't have enough. So rather than continuing left to the blacksmith, I'm going to go up and to the right to visit Lim the Relic Seeker. Which in my head I always call him Limb Seeker. Which I know is wrong, but I like it. So deal with it. Make a mistake here and get hit. I should have just fireballed him. Those are my most hated enemy in the game. Those flying sword bugs. So, gonna open up that little shortcut and talk to Lim. I'm just gonna sell everything we have. So we now have the 1,050 that we need, and then some. That King's Idol we stopped to get in Deep Nest, which took a little extra time, but it was kind of worth it because that's 800 extra geo. That's a good chunk of change that we're going to use all of. So just heading over to the blacksmith to collect our upgrades. So having 2 nail upgrades this early in the game is pretty huge, and these are actually going to be the only nail upgrades that we get, because the next one requires 2 pale ore, and I'm not gonna be bothered to go collect 2 additional pale ore and then 2,000 geo for a nail upgrade. It's not really worth it for the amount of time it takes. Especially since I'm going to be using that 2,000 geo that I otherwise would have collected that would just be wasted. I'm going to be spending it at the end of the run, or towards the end of the run, on something else, which you'll see. So our next goal here is to go through the Soul Sanctum and fight the Soul Master. He's got the next thing that we want. It's not a requirement. You can get one of two things in order to collect the Crystal Heart. You'll either need the Lumafly Lantern to open up the path to Crystal Peak in the Dark Room and pay a 50 geo toll, or Desolate Dive in order to take the alternate path to make it to Crystal Peak to collect Crystal Heart. I end up doing both just because I use Desolate Dive a lot. I went back to hit that elevator because it's going to save me some time later, even if it didn't occur to me until a little bit too late. It's still worth the time save it'll save me later. But yeah, Desolate Dive is very useful for a lot of things in this game. Mainly combat. It'll make some fights go way quicker. So here we have the Soul Sanctum. So I messed up pretty badly here. I'm actually kind of worried and panicking at this moment. But now that they're dead, it's fine. Just gotta wait for the right time to heal, which is right now. When we're forced to wait anyways. And here we have the Soul Warrior. So just trying to make it to the next room with as much health and soul as possible, because we got a lot of those flying magic caster guys that we got to take care of here. So as much soul as we can have on hand is helpful, even though he's not really in a spot where I can do anything about him. So I'm gonna stop here and get this optional charm, Soul Spell Twister. Because it's one of the best charms. It only requires 2 notches, and it's right here. I mean, it's on the way I'm already going. And this is one of my favorite bosses. Even though this is probably one of my worst fights against him, right there, that's where my up didn't work. I know for a fact I was holding out, and I should have done an up slash, but for some reason my joystick just didn't register it. So normally, after you beat a boss like this and you get the thing you want, you would do the bench skip. But after you beat the Soul Master, your save spot is in this room, so that's not an option. The trick there is to hit him on the way down as many times as possible, so that when he actually stands still, you can just hit him a couple times and he dies immediately, and then you don't even have to deal with his fireballs. It makes him way easier. Plus, you know, any boss that you can kill quicker is going to make the fight easier. Because you're not going to be spending your time dodging their attacks. So I'm going to stop here and get this free geocache. And now our objective is to make it out of the Soul Sanctum in one piece, please. I don't know why I stopped to hit that lever. I know it doesn't help me in any way. I just like to. Leave me alone. I also don't really need to stop and fight these guys. I just feel so much safer because I already don't have much health, so I kind of opt for killing all the things rather than trying to dodge them, especially when I'm low on health, unless they are just obviously way harder than I can handle. So our next goal here is to, well, first we want to go and defeat the Gru's mother, talk to Salubra and get our charm notch, and then free Sly so that we can purchase the Lumafly lantern. So that's where I'm heading now, is to the Forgotten Crossroads. Which, this skip, that shouldn't have worked. I don't know why it did. I'm going to buy this bench, go into the next room, and then come back. That's not a mistake. That's intentional. To skip the bench coming out of the ground animation. Here we have my least favorite room in the game. This is the room that is most commonly my run killer. Because of these guys. These guys are just... they know exactly how to get me. Every time. Just... I don't understand. It's like they specialized in how to defeat me. So, I don't even bother with that last flying guy, but he follows me anyways. And still manages to get a hit on me. So, you would think that the fastest route to get to Sly from here would be to use the Stag Station to go to Dirtmouth. But it's not. I'm only unlocking it in case I might need it later, which I don't think I think I maybe use it once. Maybe. So I'm gonna stop here and get this Wanderer's Journal. That's 200 Geo for later. So this is the fastest way to get to Sly from here, which I found surprising. I didn't realize just how close this was to Sly until I decided to try it one day. I was like, wow, that was really fast. So, and now we are in the same room as Sly. And Gru's mother, and Salubra. We just gotta get through Gru's mother, and she's done. Yeah, with 2 nail upgrades and fragile strength, Gru's mother takes 5 nail hits. And all of her little babies take 1 hit. So that was Gru's mother. Flawless victory. Thanks for attending. So here we're going to pick up Shaman Stone and the Charm Notch, but not going to make the mistake of sitting at the bench outside in order to equip our charms, because that would remove our bench warp, which we do not want to bench warp here. So, gotta remember to grab Sly. I know that I've forgotten him a few times in previous runs, but he's very important. So now we're just gonna head back to town so we can purchase things from him. But we got to open this stag station to warp to Dirtmouth. So right there, I was considering going and doing something new that I recently added to the run, but I ultimately decided against it because I don't have something that I'm going to need. So I decided I'm not going to do it now because it'll save me time to do it later when I have the thing I need to get other stuff. So that's kind of what this entire run constantly is improvisation, planning ahead, trying to find the optimal way to do things on the fly. And it's challenging. It's a juggling act. So now we're going back to the Forgotten Crossroads in order to enter Crystal Peak. So there are 2 ways we can go. Now that we have the Lumafly Lantern and almost no Geo, you need 50 Geo to open this toll in the dark room. And now we have the Lumafly Lantern, so we can go in the dark room. But instead, I'm going to go up and grab this grub and essentially free Geo for an easy fight. And now we're going to Crystal Peak. But you want to make sure you have enough soul for at least 1 spell when you go up here. So you can do the ground pound. You don't have to go back and find the statue or an enemy. I make a very dumb mistake here that I've never made before. And I'm actually, at this point in the game, I'm not even mad at that. I almost think it's kind of funny just because it's never happened. You kind of surprise yourself with the silly mistakes you make while you're thinking about other stuff, trying to figure out what it is you're going to do. I do stop to save the scrub. You're going to find out very soon why I'm taking the time for grubs. So I don't really need to stop and kill this guy, but I have a vendetta against them. And I shouldn't have stopped to open that secret door because I'm not going to use it anyways, and it messed up the cycle here, and I got hit. I do need to stop and grab this King's Idol, which is kind of hard to get, and I think I do it on my 4th try here. Not counting that as a separate try. Maybe counting that as a zip try. So right now I'm very concerned because I'm at pretty low health in one of the harder parts of the run. But I'm still gonna stop and do this boss fight because I'm a bamf. So I get the shopkeeper's key because I'll need it for the very specific thing that I keep referencing. So I go ahead and grab it before the boss fight so I don't forget to grab it afterwards. Because I have done this boss fight thinking, oh, I'll grab the shopkeeper's key and then totally forget it. And it's like, well, I needed that. I'm not entirely sure why that didn't hit me. I could have sworn it was going to. But just barely missed me with that beam. I really would like to incorporate getting that pale ore up there. It's just not really feasible. It's not really necessary. Getting greedy with the geo. Got hit twice because of it. So now we are in the room with the crystal heart upgrade. Gonna stop and get some safety soul just in case I need it. I would rather be safe than sorry. Some extra safety soul. And Crystal Heart is unlocked. So normally this is where speedrunners would bench warp, but I'm not going to. I'm going to continue on through Crystal Peak and unlock my upgrade for the Desolate, or the Desolate Dive. Upgrade it to the Descending Dark, so that it does more damage and is more effective against bosses and enemies. It'll be very useful. It is kind of a not super necessary time investment, but to me it's worth it, especially since we're so close to it anyways. So not really much to say at this part, other than don't fall, don't get hit. Easier said than done. I was actually pretty surprised at how well I did at that part. It usually doesn't go that well. So Descending Dark is unlocked. We're gonna do another bench warp. and go back to the City of Tears. Right near the Soul Sanctum. So we're just under an hour on the run. So here's where I make the biggest mistake of the run. And I don't realize it for a while. And it's not right here. It's still a little bit ahead. But it's coming up here really shortly. So right now my goal is to go to... That wasn't the mistake, by the way. That was a very small mistake. So now we're going to the Royal Waterways in order to fight the Dung Defender and unlock Isma's Tear, so that later we're able to access the Queen's Gardens, which is not a requirement, but it makes the run faster and easier, in my opinion. I could be wrong about that. This is the mistake, by the way. Coming to Limb Seeker to sell relics, shouldn't have done that right now. That was a bad decision. I was more wanting to get it out of the way. I should have just come down here and skipped him. And I'll explain why here very soon. We're taking a not very traditional route because this is the very newest thing that I've added into my route, is going this way. For the specific reason of collecting a mask shard that is over here. It was one of the easiest ones that I found on a route that I'm already basically taking. It's like 2 rooms out of the way. And I'm already there. So we're not going to be able to complete that mask for a little bit, because the rest of the shards are out of the way for now. So we'll just get them when they are on the way. So I do stop and get this little grubby here. I dedicate that particular one to Magi. Because I know this is her favorite area. She just loves all the noises that the creatures make. So this is not the fastest way to the Dung Defender, but I didn't have soul to break through that ground barrier back there by the bench. So I kind of had to take the less direct route. So place your bets. Do I do this flawlessly? Or do I take damage? That was a good first phase. And he's down. So in my last run, where it took me 1 hour and 34 minutes, this is where I made one of the biggest mistakes of the run. Is I hit that switch, I go down here and I grab the King's Idol, and then I saved and quit to bench warp. And that's a huge mistake, so I make sure not to make that mistake this time. Because that sent me back to the City of Tears prematurely when I didn't want to be there. I need to go deeper into the Royal Waterways and collect Isma's Tear, so that I can swim in the acid water to get to Queen's Garden later. So yeah, that's one of the primary reasons that I wanted to do this run again, is because I did that. That was a at least 3-minute mistake. And the other huge mistake I made in the previous run was I forgot to sell at Limb Seeker the first time, and I went straight to the blacksmith, and then I didn't have enough money for the second upgrade. So then I had to go back to Limb Seeker and then go back to the blacksmith. And yeah, there were several other tiny mistakes I made in the previous run, which I actually didn't upload. I just straight ahead did this run. This one that you're watching now. And there was a point where my down didn't work on my joystick. I know I was hitting it. It just didn't register. So the mistake I made in this run where I went and sold things at Limb, the reason that's a mistake is because of the King's Idol that I pick up after beating the Dung Defender in that underground layer. I need to sell that. I need the money from that. So instead of going to Limb before the Royal Waterways, I needed to go after. And I have this bad habit of going up and left to the city storeroom stag station when I should be going down and right to the King's Station stag station. It'd be far more efficient, way easier, safer, faster. But instead of going to see Lim here, I'm like, nope, I'm going to the stag station because I need to go talk to Sly. And here is where I make one of the worst mistakes. I have a terrible fight here with these guys. They just get me repeatedly, and then here I'm in full-blown panic mode. I'm about to die, and I'm like, I'm just gonna try that again. But here I make the same mistake again. And rather than go and talk to Lim like I should and get the 800 Geo from the King's Idol, I beat my head against the wall and try this room again. So, but that's kind of the way you learn doing these speedruns, is by making these huge mistakes. And it helps having a recording of them so you can kind of analyze it and understand why it was wrong, what it was about it that didn't work, or why you should have done it differently. That room is just so dangerous. I can't believe I go through it, what, like 4 times in this run? It's kind of insane. It's stupid, and it's suicidal. So here is the big stink about why I've been collecting all the Geo, why I've been collecting all the grubs. It's because I'm taking this extra pit stop here to collect mask shards. It's gonna make the Dreamer fights so much safer, and the final boss too. It's gonna make the entire run safer. So now I have 6 mass shards. So anytime you see me get down to 1 health, that's when I would officially otherwise be dead in a previous run. I don't have the 1500 Geo to get that last mass shard, which at this point in the run I'm really kicking myself for, but moreover I'm trying to figure out how to correct it while being the least inconvenience. So this is why I've been collecting the grubs the entire time, for this measly amount of Geo. No, it's for this. The mask shard. 5 grubs will get you a mask shard from the grub father. Next up is another optional thing. I'm gonna do quite a few optional things here before we really get back on track in the run. Safety strats, you know, because my goal was 2 hours, so I have some room, some wiggle room for some safety strats. So what do you think? You think I can do this one flawless? And he's down. All right, and now we're on to our last stop before bench warping. So by this point, I have figured it out in my mind what I'm going to do to correct the mistake of not selling the King's Idol. And that's why I got hit there, is because I was thinking about it. Thinking about how to correct it. I've got it mostly worked out. There's one detail that I don't have figured out at this point, and that's how I'm going to make it back to Sly without being a huge pain in the ass. But I do figure that out too, eventually. Just because I know it's a problem in my mind, and I'm thinking about how to resolve it. So here I'm like, okay, I have 2 simple goals. I need to visit Limseeker, and I need to go to the Watcher Knights. Those are my 2 goals for this current leg of the run. We're now in the fun part of the run, aka the scary, dangerous, action-packed part. So, correcting my mistake. And on to the Watcher Knights. So normally you would need the Monarch wings to get up here, but there is that little intended skip that the developers intentionally put in the game, so that if you wanted to speedrun the game, you would have that ability to skip the Monarch wings and just come straight here. I really thought I was gonna get smacked there. I was surprised that he died. So coming up is, I mean, I don't really want to spoil it, but I'm gonna say that it's by far the best Watcher Knights fight I've ever had in one of these speedruns. Like, I'm very pleased with it. I do still take out one of them with the chandelier, just because I'd be crazy not to. But enjoy. That was the watching bits. So I do stop here and grab the geocache and the Hollowness seal. Not really because I need to, just because they're here. They're convenient. And I don't know exactly the amount of geo that I need for like tolls and stags for the rest of the run. I know it's not much, but it's always good to have a little extra stockpile of geo in case you need that safety bench here and there, because there's a couple pay stations in Queen's Gardens, and yeah, they're not really out of the way. It's just that you need money to use at least one of them. But we won't be visiting Limb Seeker again to sell. So the Hollowness seal I probably could have skipped. So there's our first dreamer. Our next goal is to finish correcting the mistake of not having enough geo to buy all 4 mass shards. So now my immediate goal is to go back to Forgotten Crossroads and purchase the last mass shard, and then figure out the quickest way in order to make it to the next dreamer. If you go left there, you'll be ambushed by probably about 6 or 8 guys. So that's why I went right here and up through the shortcut, is so I don't have to stop and fight those guys when I don't really need the money and I don't really want the hassle. And honestly, I should have gone to King Station instead of through this city storerooms garbage again. Although that fight didn't go too bad. Getting hit twice and not getting knocked down, I'll take that. So normally I wouldn't do this. Normally I would go left and take the elevator up and then follow that left to like kind of up around and then left to make it to the what's it called? Fog Canyon. But I had to come here to complete the mask because I'm gonna need it for specifically the final boss. It doesn't hurt to have it for Umu just in case though. Although lately my Umu runs have been pretty good, so I'm not particularly concerned about Umu. I'm mainly just concerned about having the hits for Queen's Garden and the Hollow Knight. Double hit there, and then another. Just making all kinds of mistakes because I'm trying to figure out in my head if this lost any significant amount of time coming this way. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm here already because I didn't expect it to happen so fast. So yeah, that's kind of why I took so much damage in that room, is because I was kind of trying to calculate in my head. It's like, I think I may have actually saved time going this way. Maybe. Probably not a whole lot. Probably just seconds, but... So I am going to safety bench here, just in case Umu gets the upper hand on me and I need to try the fight again. So I don't have to start from the beginning, but... I almost never end up needing it, but I still like to have it. So if you're not full on soul by the time you get to Umu, you can dream nail him twice here in the beginning of the fight, as long as you're standing on the platform next to him where he starts. The goal here is to try and be standing in the middle after he finishes his attacks, so that he will follow you into the middle, because he goes where you're standing after his attacks, and you want him kind of perfectly on that center big platform so you can desolate dive like that. That was a good attack I got on him. It wasn't perfect, but I'm happy with it. And then just kind of trying to keep him balanced in the center. That was closer to a perfect attack during that cycle. But this is the one that I mess up supremely, because I wasn't ready for him to hit him right there. And I'm like, why did that happen so fast? I wasn't ready for it. I thought he was going to do another attack cycle, and then Coral was going to open him up for an attack. But anyways, pretty fast and safe Umu anyways. And that's 2 dreamers. And now we're on the final leg of the run. We've got all of our optional things out of the way. We just have to find and defeat Hera, and then defeat the Hollow Knight. So this is the scariest part of the run for me. I don't think I've ever seen anyone go the way that I go. And it's probably not even the best way to go. In fact, it's probably a really bad way to go. I don't really know. But it's the way that I go, because I feel that I feel it saves time, but now that I think about it, it probably doesn't. It probably costs time. So, and I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about Queen's Garden. In order to get to Deep Nest, to get the last streamer. Because there are quite a few ways to get into Deep Nest, And instead of taking the closest way into Deep Nest, I take the harder way through Queen's Garden. And I'm upset at myself for doing that, and then I do it again because I was upset about it. But to be clear, both times were an accident. It's just that I was upset about the first one, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it right this time. And in trying to do it right the second time, I messed it up again. That's all I meant by it. So this is the way that I'm not entirely sure if it's the most optimal route. It probably isn't, because it's very dangerous. It's kind of long. But it's the path that I created for myself. And this is one of the worst rooms about this route. This little challenge area where you gotta fight 3 of these guys. I was very pleased that I was able to pogo on that guy 3 times, because it almost never works out that way. You think you're gonna do it, and then he just magically moves out of the way, and you miss the last one. And then he flies out of range, and you just can't hit him for like 30 seconds, and it's really frustrating. So the fact that I was able to get him, that mistake upset me quite a bit. Because that's pretty much the worst thing you can do, is fall on those spikes before you land on this platform, and it sends you back up there. But it's okay, we're pressing on. We'll make it. We will survive. Hopefully. I stopped to grab some extra soul in case I need it for spells against these guys, because this is the official worst room in the entire game. But I did it pretty well. There's a bench in that left room that is one of the pay benches that I was talking about earlier. This is the first time that I've ever chosen not to take it. And that's mainly because I have quite a bit of health and I have some extra soul. So I feel like I'm safe enough that I can do this part without any health scares, especially since I learned how to do this room much better. So the reason I take that path through Queen's Garden is because of where you come into Deep Nest from it. It's much closer to the Dreamer, so you spend a lot less time in Deep Nest, even if you do have to do the harder area, which is Queen's Garden. So, and now we're already at the Dreamer. So this room is where a few of my previous speedruns had died at guys like this. Ultimately, one of the reasons why I wanted to incorporate the Descending Dark into the run is so that those guys would be way easier to kill. In addition to the Hollow Knight, because Descending Dark is just pretty ultimate against the Hollow Knight. This is the best I've ever done in this room. Usually each of those tiny bugs will hit me at least once. So the fact that none of them have hit me, except this one here. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this run. So these guys' hits do 2 damage if they hit you with their nail, which for some reason that one hit me. So I'm scared now. I've got a single hit left. And I was just fortunate that he didn't get another attack off. And the Dreamer healed me back to full. And that is the final Dreamer. So, doing a bench warp after a Dreamer doesn't work because your save spot is right where you wake up. So if we were to save and quit now and reload our file, this is exactly where we would be. So we got to make it back to Forgotten Crossroads. Quickest way is this stag up here, which I believe costs $250. Stags hate it when you do that. Alright, nothing left to do but to just put on our big boy pants and do it. I will warn you that ever since I was in Queen's Garden, I had to pee really badly. And by the time I got to this point, I literally thought I was going to pee myself. So I actually sit on this bench and take a pause break. So that I don't have a messy mishap. So, but I'm not gone too long. I'd rather sit here on a pause screen where my timer is officially stopped than to do any kind of like cut or edit in the recording. This entire playthrough has been completely uncut, unedited, no modifications. Everything you see is exactly what you get. So I do like to interact with the World Stone, even though I know I'm at 34% completion. It's just one of those things. I like to see the percent in case anything changes. So I'm kind of panicking here a little bit because I'm not doing well. Nerves kind of got to me from standing up and having to use the restroom and honestly, this is my least practiced boss of all of them. So I'm not super great at him, and he gets me here, and I panic, and I'm like, nope, we're trying the fight again, because that did not go well. And honestly, I'd like to do a speed run where I don't have any panic quits. But when you get this close to finally completing your goal, I'd rather have a panic quit and have to try them again than lose the run and have to start over. So that was a pretty big mistake because I hit him with Descending Dark. I was just lucky enough that I did enough damage to him to trigger this phase. So I'm hitting him to collect souls so I can heal. This is my least favorite move because it seems to take forever. Those fire pillars do 2 damage if they hit you, so I'm trying extra hard to not get hit by those. And that's Hollow Knight. Steel Soul mode, sub hour and a half. Brought to you by Dead Machine. Thanks for watching, guys. Fun fact, the Hollow Knight boss music is my favorite track in the entire soundtrack. Yeah, I've had a great time practicing this speed run, learning the ins and outs, making all the mistakes that I made in order to learn how to do it better, and then to make all new mistakes. It's great. Hollow Knight's just so punishing in a way that's very rewarding. I doubt I will be trying for any significantly better time, because if I wanted to trim out 10 or 20 minutes from my current run, I'd have to cut out like getting all the mash shards, or getting Descending Dark, or getting even Desolate Dive. Like I could beat the game without Desolate Dive, and that would save me from having to go to Soul Sanctum at all and fighting the Soul Master, and also fighting his little sub boss, the Soul Warrior, the guy with the sword that drops from the sky, the rapier. And what else could I cut out from the run? If I really wanted to, I could cut out collecting the charms and the grubs and getting Salubra, her Shaman Stone and Soul, or not Soul, Shaman Stone and Charm Notch. I could skip the Mushroom Charm Notch. I could skip getting the Fragile Strength from Leg Eater. There's a lot of things that I could cut out, but it would make all of the fights harder. And it's like, do I really need to beat it faster than an hour and a half? Yeah, I probably do. Yeah, I probably do. Congratulations, you played skillfully and proved you have a steel soul. Thank you for taking the time to explore and conquer the world we built. We'll meet again. %, an hour, 28 minutes, and 31 seconds. And this concludes the Steel Soul speedrun. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you later.